This is Kathleen from Be Again Books, and I'm wondering if you need to know how to make an easy patina effect just on paper for your junk journals. We're getting ready to make the steampunk journal, and I've got to have some papers. And I have a whole stack of fun, like scrapbook papers and decorative papers and book pages and other papers that are going to go in the signature. But I want to do some artsy kind of papers, and I want them to look steampunk. And so the two finishes that are most steampunk are copper patina and rust. And I want to show you how to make those. So buckle up, and here we go. We're going to just start with a regular paper. This is heavier. This is like, I don't know what pound it is, but it's heavier than copy paper. So maybe 28 pound. It's just going to be a little more sturdy. But whatever you have is okay, honestly. The back of the scrapbook paper would be perfect. The scrapbook paper is a heavier paper, but it's white, and so we want to cover it up. So we're going to do this kind of like I did a couple months ago with the Dollar Tree papers when we painted those. I've got about 1/4 cup of water in this little jar, and I am just going to squeeze some paint in there. I don't know, maybe a tablespoon of this pretty aqua color. And then I'm just going to take the end of my paintbrush and mix that up. Thin paint, just almost like a wash. Now we're just going to paint that on like a base coat. And that'll just give us a base color. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. And then we want to make a palette of the patina colors. And copper patina, well, we also kind of sometimes get a patina on brass, but copper patina can be all kinds of colors, okay? It can have greens and blues and dark colors like brown, yeah, and it's just really variable. So I just have collected a couple of blues, a dark green, and like a forest pine green, and then this kind of lighter green, and some brown. So I'm just going to, here, let's just set that aside for a minute, and we'll just make a little palette on this paper plate. And this is just the inexpensive acrylic paint, the little tubes. Let's put some white out in case we want to do, it's not white, oatmeal color. And then we'll do a little bit of brown. Okay. Oh, and here's the lighter green. All right. Then the next thing you're going to need is a sea sponge. I have two kinds. I have the kind that is really open with lots of holes, and then this one is a little more dense. So now let me put that over there. Now we're going to bring this tray back over, and I am going to spray the sponge so it's just a little bit damp, and we're going to start with this one that's a little more open. And you're also going to need some paper towels. So, and another paper plate, because you're going to want to dab some of it off. So let's put that there, and maybe this right here. Okay, so I'm going to start, I think, with this lighter blue. Dab a little of that off, and then just on the wet paint, I'm just going to start moving this around. And then I'm going to pick up a little more of the darker blue. And I'm switching the sponge around, if you can see, so that I'm not going to get a pattern. I don't want a pattern. Just going to dab this on. The reason why I'm using a sponge rather than a paintbrush is just to get this depth in the paint. And I want to go off the edges. Okay, and now I'm going to pick up a little bit of green. Okay, and I'm just going to dab that off so that it doesn't splotch, and then do it some more. And I'm applying the paint first, and then we'll come in and do a little blending kind of before it gets all the way dry. Do you see how if I'm not careful to move, then I can end up getting a pattern maybe that I don't want to see, you know, with those darker colors. I don't really want a pattern in there. And so you can see how I'm just kind of creating this kind of muddied color here in the middle, and that's good. Okay, now that we have some paint on there, then I'm just going to put this down for a minute, and I'm going to spray that a little bit more. Make that just a little bit more wet and pounce it down off of here. And then I'm now just going to just start feathering and twisting and blending a little bit more in there. So now I'm getting I'm blending just a little bit. I hope you can see that. Especially where that dark brown is, or this darker green. I'm just kind of allowing the sponge to just kind of smear that paint just a little bit. Turn this over so that I can get kind of up to the edge of that paper. If the paint begins to dry before you're able to get it blended, you can you see how it's blending? But over in here, the paint is drying a little bit more. So what I can do is just now my sponge is kind of got that dirty paint, sort of. I can just put a little bit more paint on top of that. And keep blending. So these spots with the dark, it just adds some depth and kind of like, I don't know, like marble. So here, this is blended really nicely. And I'm just kind of trying to, and my paper is kind of, let me see if I can pick up an edge and move it a little bit. Move it down so that I can get to that other edge. There we go. So this will be part 1, copper patina, and then in the next video I'll do part 2, which will be rusting. Okay, very good. Okay, let me go dry this and I'll show you how it looks. Okay, this part is mostly dry, so let's now flip it over and we'll do the other side. So now we'll begin again with this blue color, just like kind of like we did before, and we'll just put the kind of the base down. So you see there's a little pattern. I don't want that. So I have to keep turning the sponge so that I don't get that pattern. Let's mix just a little bit of the dark in there. Okay, and now we can again start picking up some of these other colors and mixing that kind of here in the middle. And then just keep filling that in. Turning the sponge. Going off the edge. Okay, so you can see that. Okay, now we want to spray this sponge just a little bit, and then we want to just start twisting and blending a little bit, moving those colors just a little bit. This is drying. Paint is getting dried. So we need to move it a little bit more. So that the colors blend. And if you need to, you can even just spritz it with water to kind of loosen the paint again. And just blend it. This takes a little bit of practice. Don't be disappointed if your first try, doesn't look as good as you think it ought to. I'm going to remind you again, I've told you this several times about what my mom said. When you're up close, it might not look quite like what you like, but with mixed media stuff, when it gets put into the journal and everything else is kind of added and it's all one sort of big whole, then it will look good. I promise. Okay, there we go. Can you see that? So now you can still see the spongy, you know, colors kind of underneath there, but now we're just kind of blending the edges a little bit. Okay, I hope you can see that. All right, now let's dry this side. Okay, I'm back and it's dry, and the paint will give it just a little bit more structure, I guess, to the page, and it's softer than a regular dry page. But I want to show you how it looked, and then do a couple more things before it's finished as a journal page, so I can do further decoration if I want. I can use some more stencils somewhere on the page. That would make it more decorative. But the one thing I do want to do is round the corners, because I almost always round my corners. And then I want to put just a little bit of distress ink on the edges to show you how that also helps it look realistic and aged, weathered. So let's just put just a little bit of vintage photo on the edges, and then I'll bring it up close and you can see what even that much does. Now, if you're going to write on this paint in a journal, you might need to use like a gel pen. Some, you know, it's possible that some pens won't do it. Okay, now let's see if you can see how pretty that patina is. I think it looks very realistic. I'm really happy with the way it's turned out. And if we just fold that like that, then it's ready for the journal. So you can have a page in the journal, or you can just use the papers to make other elements also for the journal, like this envelope. I will be back in just a couple of days with part 2, Rust. Thanks for being with me. We'll see you again with that video.